I attend a private university. There are terrible consequences if you fail. It's usually the dense odor of sweat staining the library that lets me know how hard I need to study. Obviously, I study no matter what, but some of the tests are easier than others. I let my eyes wander the frantic array of folders, notebooks, and leaking pens. You stay this late, you get to see the caffeine graveyards littering some desks, threatening to spill their cardboard and aluminum dead onto the floor. Or sometimes, like tonight, there's a pair in the corner embracing, sobbing silently into each other's shoulders. At a certain point, a break was in order. I snaked through the crowded tables and made my way down to the first floor where I could step outside. These vapes are shit for you. I find myself sneaking off to the bathroom too often. Cigarettes make you work for it. I unwrapped a fresh pack and smacked one end against my hand. As I brought the lighter to my lips, hungry for that first noxious hit to soothe my lungs, the door behind me swung open. The cigarette tumbled from my mouth with the force of someone running headfirst into me. A blonde kid, young, and on all fours now, spraying puke from his mouth in a violent torrent. The grass was soaked when he finally wiped the froth from his lips. "You owe me a cigarette." "What?" he gasped. I looped an arm under his shoulder and pulled him up. "Kidding, you all right?" His legs were shaking, so I set him against the wall and lit another dart while he caught his breath. Once the head rush set in, I offered it to him. He shook his head. "I don't smoke." "Might as well." He looked at the outstretched arm and accepted after a few more breaths. "Max," he choked out, smoke shooting from his nose like a medieval dragon. After another hit, his shoulders relaxed. He sank against the wall, cradling his knees to his chest. "I wanted to go to Harvard." I took the cigarette back. Didn't we all? Too bad, though. The world preys on ignorance. When you're valedictorian, you won't settle for anything less than the best. And if your family knew the right people, that's what they offered. "How old are you?" I asked, focusing on the orange ember. "Freshman. Turned 19 last month." I smiled. "Senior, graduating if this exam goes well." I used to say the same thing, probably with a little more vomit involved. I procured another cigarette from my pack. "Tell you the truth, though, it's not going to change. You just learn to aim for the toilet." Max accepted the second cigarette with no hassle. "How do you feel now?" "Better, I think," whispered Max. "Yeah? Well, now I'm fucking stressed." The wind picked up and we shivered under the brick awning. "Do me a favor and just relax. Everything is going to be fine." We finished the nicotine in silence. Before we headed back in, Max and I exchanged numbers. He asked me if we could study together. "Sorry." I shook my head. "I prefer to study alone. Good luck." The morning of the exam, I found myself in the small bathroom of my dorm painting the porcelain with last night's half-digested dinner. Sleep had progressively deteriorated throughout the week. Not just me, though. The last few nights, I'd stumble over the bodies of snoozing students. Couldn't make it home from the library, so they curled up right there on the corner of the street. I'd never seen that before. The air around campus was soaked with dread. Max had texted me the night before for some last-minute cramming. We got some studying done, but it was mostly me listening to him rant about the university. He moaned about how if he'd known the reality of this place, he'd never have gone here. I nodded, but I wanted to say, no shit. His parents had told him with his test scores he could get into the most prestigious university in the world. So elite that its existence was unknown to the 99.9% of the population destined for mediocrity. Visions of a world-class life broke the camel's back, and now he was here. Can't judge. Freshman year, after a few international flights and a long bus ride, a small city sprouted from miles of desert. The educators told us we'd be living there for the next 4 years. No breaks, no holidays, no visits to or from parents. No electronics, only pencil and paper. And classes would begin immediately. A population of students, somewhere in the range of 300, 500 were housed throughout the campus, but that number always changes. Everyone takes the same curriculum with staggered class times. No homework, no extra credit, just 2 exams every year. No leeway for those who failed. I haven't made any friends here yet. Too busy with... Max made a defeated gesture towards his notebook. He was skinny, but I could see hints of an athlete in the tone of his arms. The clock was reading late. I started to pack my things. "If we pass tomorrow, dinner's on me. You pick where." Max laughed. "I'll run you up a motherfucker of a bill." "Good," I said. "Nothing else to spend it on here." Now, morning of, the thoughts of dinner were bleached from my mind. I slammed a coffee, pitting it against the 3 hours of sleep I had milked. I made for the exam building, flipping through my notebook while I walked. A line was already forming outside when I arrived. Max was sitting right on the sidewalk, legs crossed, head buried in his notebook. He noticed me as the doors opened. "We got this, right?" Max said. "We got this." Students filed into the exam room, a large auditorium with a stage at the front. Max and I sat together near the back. A few more trickled in until the doors finally shut 5 minutes past the hour. Educators took their posts, one at each exit. Everyone was settled when there was a frantic banging. "Please," a muffled voice begged. "The bus broke down. Let me in. There's still time." But everyone knew the consequences of being late and the room remained still. An educator took to the stage holding a microphone. He was grinning like he heard a dirty joke he wished to share with everyone. "Congratulations. You've arrived at your final exam of the year. His cadence was choppy. He spoke like he was tasting each word, rolling it over with his tongue before it came out. We hope you all studied hard. As some upperclassmen may have noticed, this semester's curriculum has diverged slightly from previous years. Scattered pockets of buzzing voices sprouted around the room. Typically, it had been numerous textbooks with an arsenal of subjects to study from. Not the standard topics you would expect, dead languages like Sanskrit and Aramaic, the physics behind a black hole, origins and evolutionary paths of reptiles, cancer in the context of biological warfare. This term, each class taught the same subject. They had only provided one textbook for us, Dark Psychology. The North Wind created the Vikings, said the educator. Adaptability under unknown and extreme circumstances. This is the trait most valuable to the futures waiting for you. The educator on stage was almost giddy, shifting his weight from foot to foot. An unseen weight was beginning to fill the room. Max kept looking over, hoping his gaze would elicit some form of offered comfort from me. I had none to give. We'll begin our exam now. There is no need for pens or pencils. You may stand, walk around, and as always, you may not leave the room. But first, please check beneath your seat for your test materials. Confused looks and the soft rumble of movement began to crescendo. Max shrugged after he had gone down and come up empty-handed. I leaned forward and reached beneath my seat. I flailed my arm around until it brushed over something, chilly and dense. I tightened my grip and with a nauseating certainty pulled the object into view. A black 9mm napped in my hand. It was a gun I was familiar with from previous curriculum. Clambering atop the gasps and frantic speak of the room, the educator's voice peaked. Under every few seats, we've placed a decision maker. Those who possess one look to your neighbors. Yes, left then right. Study their faces, hear their arguments. Then make your decision. I was still looking at the gun. My sleeve was tugged from the right and I met the face of a guy about my age. He had a flat nose and oval chocolate eyes that bore into me, gauging. They flicked to the gun before he extended his hand. Jacob, he said, squeezing firmly. It's my last year here. Last test, actually. I'm looking forward to going home, seeing my family. I nodded. Max, said a voice from my left. I turned. I'm Max. I'm a freshman and it was my birthday recently. I want to live. The nausea was beginning to crawl its way up my throat. A small black spot in the corner of my vision was starting to grow, threatening to take over. I needed to control my breathing. Everyone was out of their seats now, dispersed about the auditorium in tight groups. There was damp conversation with intensity that splintered against the walls. I stood and climbed over the rows of seats until I was at the back of the room. Jacob reached me first. He grabbed my arm and pulled me in close. I'm not asking you to... A sharp clatter made us jump. A petite girl in a group of two guys next to us had dropped her gun. She was a leaf in a hurricane, trembling so fierce she couldn't move to retrieve the weapon. One of the guys next to her squatted, picked it up and with no show of hesitation fired point blank into the other boy's face. A dime-sized splotch of red appeared just to the right of his nose, and he accelerated to the floor like gravity had doubled in strength. A healthy flow of blood hosed from the chunk of flesh blown out the back of his head. The petite girl shrieked and passed out, imitating the lifeless body next to her. Max, almost finished scaling the rows of seats, flinched and toppled over. The boy with the gun turned to an educator posted at a nearby exit. It's over, right? The educator nodded and stepped aside. The boy dropped his gun. For a moment he regarded the body on the floor. He shuddered and hurried through the exit. Jacob then grabbed me by my shoulders. Give it to me, he demanded. You don't have to do anything, I'll do it for you. He extended his open hand, waiting for it to be filled with the cold metal that would guarantee his life. I watched while the educators cleaned the scene. The petite girl was carried out, and the body of the boy swiftly covered and disposed of while the floor was scrubbed. Our first decision has been made, the educator from the stage announced. Another stinging crack went off, accompanied by a cry. And the second. Suddenly, I was on the floor. My vision was smeared and the back of my head pulsed. An ache traced its way from the bottom of my jaw, escaping through my teeth. I turned over and saw Jacob scrabbling for the pistol that had disappeared from my hands. I was able to get to my knees when Jacob stood over me. His right hand was twitching, one of the knuckles torn from where it had contacted my chin. He pointed the gun between my eyes. Please, I coughed. The black hole of the barrel injected me with fear and I began to shake. Max slammed into him like a pickup truck. He bounced off the floor, dazed and immediately scrambling to find where the gun had gone, but Max was quickly on top of him. He pressed his forearm into Jacob's cheek, pinning his head to the ground with his entire weight. The 9mm lay only a few feet from the scuffle and Max fumbled for it with his free hand. Jacob bucked his hips, sending him flying to land on his face. Again, the gun found itself in Jacob's hands and he pointed it at Max. He huddled into a ball, covered his ears and shrieked. Oh ho! Look at this, chuckled the educator on stage. So much for all that studying. The gun clicked when he pulled the trigger. Jacob flexed his fingers. Nothing. He brought the pistol to his face and hurried to fix the jam. By then I was able to deliver my own punch. My form was flimsy and I felt my wrist pop when my arm followed through. I must have hit a sweet spot because he stiffened up and fell back on his ass. He looked at me confused. like he was hoping I could explain something to him before Max jumped with an arm raised overhead. When he landed on Jacob, he brought the butt of the gun down in a devastating blow that split his forehead into a wicked crimson smile. The confused look turned into a blank one. Another wet crunch, and his arms jerked into the fencing response. An artistic splatter of blood painted Max's face as he raised his arm over and over and over again until Jacob's head was an uneven mountain range of peaks and valleys. My pulse in my ears had subsided, allowing me to hear again. The groups nearest us had paused their deliberations to watch in horror. "Oh!" the words dripped from Max. "What the fuck? What the fuck? Bravo!" the microphone whined. I pulled his shaking form from the red mess beneath him. The pain in my wrist was distant. I led him past the educator, through the exit, and out into the cool afternoon while his hands covered his face. We sat in a field for some time. We monitored the clouds in silence, feeling the tickle of grass against the back of our necks. The air tasted like dandelion. Every so often the sounds of fireworks would find us from beyond the hill, though it was never enough to shake us. The world is beautiful. We are not. Dinner that night was delicious. Max hadn't lied. He finished 3 entrees before asking for the dessert menu. "It's on him," Max said when the waiter asked if the check needed splitting. I smiled and nodded. We walked home that night, bellies full and minds empty. In front of Max's dorm, we shook hands, hugged, and promised to keep in touch. I wished him the best and good luck. A bus was meeting the graduates tomorrow to take us to an airport and then home. And after that, I don't know. I'm sure my post-academia bliss will not last long. The future waiting for me is impatient. Eventually, someone or something will call upon me and my talents. The educators said our careers are already written for us, so all that's left to do is wait.